Gather your families and your flocks. We must go with all speed.
Go where? To drown in the sea? How long will the fire hold Pharaoh back?
After this day, you shall see his chariots no more.
No! You'll be dead under them!
The Lord of hosts will do battle for us. Behold his mighty hand.
Travis Wayne, good soul. Tonight, there is a special event that Nelson's panicked about. President Russell Marion Nelson of the corporation, disguised as the, or not disguised, it's the, well, yeah, it's the disguise of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Which, perfect symbolism. In Revelation chapter 12, verse 1, the Joseph Smith translation adds, "Sign in the heaven in the likeness of things on the earth." Sign in the heaven is revelation, the day and the hour, using astronomy to designate the day and the hour. Likeness of things on the earth is the prophecy, future prediction, corresponding with the sign in the heavens. So tonight, Phil Collins. We'll see if that becomes a theme song in the description below. Rather than deliver us from the Prince of Egypt. The moon will be full at 1952:49 is when I took the picture from my stellarium, my Urim and Thummim, in which the moon will eclipse Mars. It's also called occult, which is different than occult, but the same word, same spelling, just different meaning. And people who claim the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a cult are incorrect, because Brigham Young turned Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon into literal history. Thus, by Joseph Smith now talking to zombies risen from the grave, the dead, and using a rock and a hat, it's now a cult, not a cult. So yes, that ties into this symbolized pattern, because Joseph Smith is not Christian. It is not literal history. The Book of Mormon is not literal history. Mormons, being indoctrinated, become enemies and weapons for the church by spreading the lies and getting angry and mocking and committing crimes, right, YouTube Mormon employee, right, strengthening church members committee, to ensure and force everybody to accept the big lie, because they're covering up that Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are Jewish, and they're covering up what that means, that Joseph Smith is giving prophecies and days and hours of those prophecies. Likewise, the Book of Mormon. And so the church is covering all of this up. But we're not talking about that today, because we got a comment that's asking questions about the Exodus. So, the full moon in January is the wolf moon. So the wolf moon is going to cover Mars. Clothed. So I'll go back to Revelation chapter 12, verse 1. Virgo, clothed with the sun. Mars is now clothed with the wolf moon. Anybody catch on yet? Before I get to the scripture about it? Because we got to tell you who Mars is. Remember? Sign in the heavens and the likeness of things on the earth. Monson died on Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. The quadranted meteor showers of January 2nd, the third largest falling stars of the year, from the tail of Draco the dragon. See what Mormons are missing by calling it literal history and Christian? Lots of knowledge being covered up and hidden by wolves in wolf moon clothing. There it is. I leaked it. Mars, during this death sign, was at the top of the scales of Libra. Judgment. Nelson, as the president of the Quorum of the 12, as established by Brigham Young, who was the president of the Quorum of the 12 and justified being the successor of Joseph because he was the president of the Quorum of the 12. It's circular reasoning fallacy. It makes no sense, but lots of people fell for it. Mostly the militant people, the Danites, the judges. Hilarious, huh? The leader of the Danites takes over leadership. And so that's Nelson. Mars is Nelson. Sign in the heaven in the likeness of things on the earth. Is Joseph Smith lying to us? Is he not a true prophet, Mormons? Gotcha. You have to accept this, Mormons, because it happened. It's factual. You can't lie about this. And yet you still do. You lie and deny. The church is true as they say it is. And it isn't. You didn't run the test. It fails. It can't be true, dumbasses. And so you're only baptizing those who are stupid into the church, who are gullible enough to believe your lies. What does that say about the church, who are converting a whole bunch of ignorant people? Scriptures tell you to use science to run the test. Back with that scripture we're about to get to. And so, it's also not a coincidence that Russell Marion is a baby name meaning for Mars. Russell, red, Marion, star of the sea. Red star of the sea. Mars. You can't go against these Jewish prophets. These guys are just awesome. You are nowhere near in their league. So, Mars being Nelson, tonight, oh, gonna make it right tonight, oh, let us go, Nelson, hand it over, it's over. So, the scripture, Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Wolf moon clothing for Mars, Nelson, tonight. Oh, and so here's the scientific test that they tell you to run. Agronomy. You shall know them by their fruits. Are you judging them by their fruits, Mormons? No. You're not even judging me by my fruits. You're rushing to a hasty conclusion to defend this church at all costs. You're defending thorns, thistles, briars, and noxious weeds that torment and oppress mankind by the sweat of their brow. Every good tree can only bring forth good fruit. Every corrupt tree can only bring forth corrupt fruit. It's science. And so, corrupt trees with corrupt fruit are good for nothing but to be burned. Hewn down, cast into the fire. The ash then is used as soil for the next planting. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. And so, thus, prophets predict the future. Words. Run the test of the words. I just gave you an example. It hasn't happened yet. I just gave you a prophecy with a revelation for tonight. Is it going to be true? I don't know. Oh no, people can judge me. I better do what the living prophet of Jesus does and doesn't prophesy and doesn't reveal so that he can't be judged, by which he is judged as false, because he's not given anything. It's like the fig tree. No figs, no good. Burn it. All you had to do, Mormons, was run the test, and you get mad at me because of my tone. Real simple test. So, Stanford had a question on Mormons betrayed by LDS Church terrorists funding. 8 days. We're all gonna die. Isn't that special? So if I just ran the test for you, do you think I may have been doing it this whole time of all these years, of which I've been telling you is the latter days? Yeah. My number one video on this channel, and all channels, which is why YouTube is cyber terrorizing me to silence me from the world. Because it's blatantly obvious for anybody to see, I am him. I have the gifts. Section 107, verse 91 and 92. Don't look it up. Oh no, church is going to be proven false. Don't run the test. Mormons, no. Church is true. You're mean, Travis. You're mean. Whack. Get over it. Stanford's asking about the Exodus. And if Trump takes over next Monday, we're all doomed. Utah is going to be gutted of population. Uchtdorf, Suarez, and Karen are going to be deported. That's the whole thing about ICE with Cox. You don't seem to get this. The trap that the church set to get their kingdom back is the trap that's going to bite them in the ass. And I think it's a jackass that bites them in the ass. The talking jackass, for which they refuse to prophesy, And so the ass bit them. Balaam and Balak. That is the Jews are just hilarious authors. They've got a sense of humor that is just so hilarious when you understand Hebrew and the learning of the Jews of prophecy and revelation. And so yes, the Star of Jacob is where that comes from. But anyway, nobody else knows these things. And so we're going to have to go over this quickly, Stanford. I can't go into a thorough analysis and detailed study of this. And so I'll just answer your question and we'll explain it in the context that will be summed up. And so hopefully this will be less than 5 hours long. And so because Trump is going to destroy America next week, we're not going to be able to wait to do this video that I was planning to do anyway, because we got Purim coming up this year with Passover, the two number 15s with sun shall be darkened and moon turned to blood, which corresponds to my 9/11 dream last year in 3 in the morning. So we'll read over this, quickly give you the answer that you're asking, and then go over the whole Exodus in summary. Pharaoh, Russell Marion Nelson. See, he's been following me for a while. He knows what I'm talking about with stuff. He hasn't been with me the longest, but he's been with me long enough, and he's demonstrated in his comments that he understands and is studying his scriptures to further understand. And so when he comes across a question, he asks me. It's fully appropriate. This is what I expect every Mormon to do. Study your scriptures. Not to be lazy learners and lax disciples who get easily conned by the false prophets wearing wolf moon clothing. And so Nelson knew this video was coming for me to explain this tonight. He knew, and yet he knew this was the day, and yet, you know, unless I get cyber terrorized and the video turns out to be crap, that can always be a possibility, right, Mormon YouTube employee? But I'm willing to bet that the Strengthening Church Members Committee don't work on the weekends to watch my videos, and so they wait until Monday when they show up to work to begin watching my videos from the church office building, and then give a report to Nelson. Travis said this. He's being mean. You do understand, guys, for those of you who know that the church has been trying to destroy me and have been failing so far, that Monday next week is their next attempt to get me. What the damage that Trump is going to do is going to affect me too. And this is how the church is going to cover it up. I'm well aware of what they're up to. They can't hide it from me. I know their pattern of practice. And so, yes, I'm very well aware of Police Chief Brown, the Salt Lake City Police, who, in conspiracy with the new Attorney General and the orders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, have now escalated to 3 homeless persons, putting their lives in danger because the state of Utah is trying to murder all of us. And give me the middle finger to not do their jobs, to serve and protect. I'm very well aware of what's going on. Chief Brown is required to lock up the church for their crimes. I've revealed to him the documents and evidence necessary for him to lock them up. He knows. He's Mormon. His parents are Mormon. He knows. All Mormons know they're criminal. They just are in denial of it, saying that criminal is good because we're the righteous chosen ones. So we don't actually commit crimes. And then they go and say, that's not Isaiah. You are the one who's calling us bad when we're good. Bleep you all. Haters and evil people who worship Satan and call him Jesus. So yes, I'm very well aware of the enemy. I know my enemy. Art of War, Sun Tzu. But apparently Nelson keeps forgetting. I was told he had great memory, and yet. Is the Strengthening Church Members Committee failing to do their job properly on me? So Pharaoh, Russell Marion Nelson. You gotta understand, Pharaoh back then was both king and high priest. And so it's also Trump. Pharaoh Trump, Pharaoh Russell Marion Nelson. We're in the latter days. Sign in the heavens, likeness of things on the earth. Trump is Mercury, by the way. Mercury was at the top of the scales of judgment after Hillary conceded. Amazing. And so Mercury is the Trump of the gods, messenger. Has one son. We're only told this by the author. This is what needs to be understood as I go through the summary, because there's going to be some bombshell new stuff that you have never heard from anybody else, because everybody else thinks it's literal history. His one and only firstborn son, who is Russell Marion Jr., number 10, after 9 daughters. Which, if Nelson were a good guy and not the evil person that he is, being married to Venus, the inverted pentagram of Lucifer, thus Marion is Lucifer. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? On 9/11/2023. Oh, Nelson, you never learn. You just get angry and you try to murder me again. You never learn. You never learn. And so the first question that he's asking me is, will Pharaoh Russell Marion Nelson offer his firstborn son as a final throwdown before the fall of the church? No. But it would be interesting because Trump next week is going to gut Utah. A whole list that has been thrown away. Everybody in Utah will in some way or another be affected directly by Trump's actions. Even if you are a white, military aged for the draft male, because he will issue the draft. Because the wars that he has planned will spread our military forces thin, requiring that he issue the draft for the remaining men for the war to die. Russell Marion's son may be in his 70s, and so he's likely retired. Although he's number 10, And so that's another 10 years, so he could be in his 60s. But still could be retired. I don't know, they keep it a sacred secret from us. You have to be in his ward, I guess, to know about him and what's going on, but regardless. And so, yes, the death trap that the church has set to get back their kingdom and destroy the world and America, to coup governments, is the trap that's going to be set for them. So yes, Junior could be a part of the casualties of this trap that Nelson has been setting. So Nelson will be responsible for the death of his firstborn, only begotten son. Tell that to Nelson's Strengthening Church Members Committee. There are consequences to actions. And you can't ignore the consequences and think that you can get away with it. And so it kind of sucks that Mitt Romney doesn't understand that the church tried to have him assassinated on January 6, 2021, as a test run. So says Oaks. Gotta pay attention to all my videos, guys. Just because I'm not putting it in this video doesn't mean I didn't talk about it and don't know about it. Don't think that you, having never studied, think that you know better than me. You don't run the tests. I just demonstrated again, I run the tests. You are way behind on my level of knowledge. And so, before the fall of the church, I would see that as being part of the fall of the church. The death of Pharaoh's son is the fall of the church and the government by the Jewish author. They're one and the same. The third injunction for Moses to return to Egypt to free Israel, God's firstborn, the message that all those who had previously tried to kill him are dead. Exodus 4:19. The Lord said to Moses and Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for all the men who sought to kill you are dead." Are all 15 who signed off on exterminating you dead yet? This primarily focuses on Pharaoh, and that would have been Monson. And yes, he did die. The curse of Joseph Smith in January, with the conjunction of the full blood blue wolf moon lunar eclipse. That was a supermoon even as well. That was just incredible. And so yes, even the lunar eclipse, moon shall be darkened also, but it was also scriptural prophecy from Revelation chapter 12 verse 4. So triple whammy on Monson. Take that. So yes, prophecy was fulfilled on the one who was in charge, the captain of the ship, who gives the orders and goes down with the ship. You listening, Nelson? You're next. Would it be tonight? Tonight, tonight, tonight. But just understand that this doesn't mean that tonight Nelson dies. I would accept it for the curse of Joseph Smith, but it's just to show Mormons that Nelson is a false prophet. Again, because Mormons aren't running the test and they're not getting it. But there were others who signed that check too. And so for that, we need to bring up that picture. Tonight, 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 oh, gonna make it right tonight. Monsoon. See. Okay, you're the Spanish one. Oh, there's the one with the X's on them. Because I've done this video before. So Stanford apparently has missed that video when I covered it. So, under Monson, all those who signed the check to exterminate me go down to Neil L. Anderson. And so, the ones who are left are Nelson, Oakes, Holland, Irene, Uchtdorf, Bednar, Cook, Christofferson, and Anderson, in order. Monson, dead. Packer, Perry, Scott, dead. With the sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars falling from heaven of 2014-2015. You going, what? I thought that was just a lunar tetrad on Jewish holy days. Yes, it was. But also, because the guy who made it popular missed some information for you that I then covered. 2014 was when I was freed from my captivity. Before I start my ministry, Perry, Packer, Scott, bye. Gone. There's a scandal about Scott. We'll not talk about it. His family are kind of confused as to what happened. And I've given you the video of my one-on-one with Scott at the Jordan River Temple on several occasions on a Saturday morning. I'm very curious about that one daughter who seemed to be all by herself. Very curious. 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 Just curious. That's it. That's all. And then, as we start to get into it, the 23rd of September 2017 from Revelation chapter 12 verses 1, 2, and 5. Remember Joseph Smith translation? 5 gets moved to verse 3. This has to do with my summary that I'll be giving at the end. October 1st, hails, then bites the big one. And then the big show. Not the WWE guy. Thomas S. Monson dies. Right there at the beginning. Not a coincidence. And so for Nelson to then take over as King of Kings, Lord of Lords, the great high priest, false prophet, needs to be seen in the context that the initial prophecy is only Monson for judgment of what was done to me. All 15 have to agree, and all 15 have to sign the check, technically approve it, so that the presiding bishop can then have it signed and sent out to the person who was the one who recommended my extermination to the judge to be denied due process. But the rest of them still are prophesied to also bite the big one. Holland in 2020 For example, had an episode one Monday after his interview with the rabbi that's posted online on YouTube. We get told 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later after Nelson fell, 2 weeks later for Holland, because these guys know me. They know the content of the videos I do. They know I'm the guy. It's blatantly obvious, even though they continue to lie and deceive you. They know, and they are terrified of me. Because they know who I am. They never expected the Jews to be true. They never expected Joseph to be true. You think they were scared when Mark Hoffman gave them the salamander letter that said that Joseph Smith III is a legitimate successor? So that they covered it up and hid it? For me to suddenly appear scared them to death, and thus caused them to instantly require that I die. And they've been trying and failing ever since. And this is why it's so pathetic of Mormons who refuse to study, to run the tests. 1 week, guys. 1 week. This church must fall this week to save your lives, or I can't do it. You have chosen to reject me, and you cannot be saved. There are consequences. You can't blame me for not having supernatural powers like Jesus, who failed to show also. So yes, these men are left. And only Uchtdorf is going to get deported. Hilarious. Hilarious. Okay? And so again, going back to the first question, the rest of them likewise are going to be casualties of the fall of the church because of Nelson setting a trap to destroy and conquer the world for his kingdom, which will come back to bite him. The rest will be casualties, just like his son will be a casualty. But Nelson was necessary for the latter-day prophecies. Okay? There's just some fun stuff that if you don't do your study and research, you miss it. And what of the timing death, Pharaoh's firstborn son, prior to the fall of the church? Okay, so again, I have to go over this with you before we go over the Exodus summary. And we're at 40 minutes. Pharaoh's son's death was the fall of the church. For the Egyptians, the death of Pharaoh was seen as the fall of the kingdom. The death of the king, death of the kingdom at the same time. They used the pattern of the murder of Osiris by his brother Set and the restoring of the kingdom by his son Horus as the pattern theme for the Egyptian government, the Egyptian culture, and thus the Jewish prophecies of their Christ coming in the latter days. All of this was repeated with celebration, symbolic, ceremonial fashion, and text wording, etc., etc. This was the Egyptian culture. And to understand that first core story is vital to correctly understanding and interpreting the Egyptians. And so the Jewish author, who is not doing literal history, he's specifically prophesying of the latter days. And as both government and religion, which is now separated, the Egyptian pattern of succession is being shown here, not our manner of succession. If Trump, as the government leader, dies, J.D. Vance takes over. If J.D. Vance dies, because it's before the 20th of January, the Speaker of the House then becomes president, rather than the line of succession. Actually, it's still the Speaker of the House. The appointees have to be appointed by the Senate this week in order for them to qualify for the rank line of succession if Trump were to die before the 20th. So if they don't get approved by the Senate, then they don't qualify for the rank order after the Senate pro tempore, after the Speaker of the House. So that's what will happen if Trump dies, and J.D. Vance dies, and then the Speaker of the House dies, and then the Senate pro tempore dies, and then whoever is approved of the line of succession. If, and this is how America would fall, it has to be the full federal government falling. So it can't just be Trump dying. It would have to be the president, vice president, the whole of Congress, and no cabinet. And thus the Supreme Court also. That is how the federal government is destroyed and the church gets their kingdom back. This is what they're working for. They know that Trump taking office on the 20th will get that done. And they were hoping that they would go unnoticed. But the ICE director here in Utah leaked that he had been ordered to back off once Trump takes office, to not do what Trump is telling every state to do. As he leaked and said that Utah is a sanctuary state because of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The church is going to get bitten now because of this. They had set a trap to destroy America, and Utah would not conform and comply to Trump. So while the rest of America is getting destroyed on the 21st, Utah pretends to be a part of it. But Utah is insignificant. Nobody even knows what Utah is. Is that a state in our union? Huh? Which one is that? Where is, oh, Mormons. Right, gotcha. Now we know. Those polygamous murderers. And so, yes, this is how this is going to happen. So for the church, if Nelson dies, church doesn't fall. Oaks takes over. And the line of succession for all the apostles. And so for the church to fall, all 15 or a majority need to fall. So that 6 is an insufficient number to form a quorum to conduct business. Section 107. They must have a majority to form a quorum to conduct business. If there are only 6 apostles left, it is not a majority. They cannot form a quorum to conduct business. The church has fallen. However, which also is a part of the Exodus prophecy, the man like Moses sends a letter to the presidency of the 70 elders. And tells them of the signs in the heavens that are coming. And they then change the Wikipedia page about the 70. Trying to claim that Section 107, hypothetically, if all of the apostles are unable to do their job, as the first presidency is unable to do their job, the 70 can take over the church. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Nope. Nope. It should be on this channel, that letter to the 70 presidency. Hilarious. And so, yes, the fall is just more than the death of a son. It's more than the death of the leader. We're talking a complete and utter collapse to equal the pharaonic fall of a dynasty. But he's having to use the current understanding of the Egyptians and how they fell. And this was during the Roman period time, so they still remember the fall of Egypt that led to the Ptolemaic dynasty under the Greeks. So, yeah, understand that you don't literally interpret the prophecies. You've got to identify the symbol comparisons, the types and shadow comparisons, and put it in the current context for the prophecies. And that will help you out. Exodus 4:21. And the Lord said to Moses, when you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the marvels that I have put into your hand. I, however, will harden his heart, so that he will not let the people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my firstborn son. 4:23. I have said to you, let my son go, that he may worship me. Yet you refuse to let him go. Now I will slay your firstborn son. Yeah. All 15 are lying to Mormons. All 15 will not let you go. All 15 will fall, according to the prophecy. And I already see this coming. They think that they're going to sneak past and not do what Trump orders the nation to do. And people are going to be upset. There are Mormon MAGA in Utah who are going to demand that the governor and the chiefs of police do their job. They don't care if they're fellow Mormons. YouTube was recommending a channel by a bunch of dumbass Mormons who are trying to defend a psychologist by calling other Mormons who are picking on her Orthodox Mormon bullies. So there's already a division in this church. There's class divisions. But the woman who was attacking the psychologist was an ex, I thought. But they used the plural rather than the one woman that I saw doing a video on the psychologist that they were defending. They don't get it. You don't get it. Don't defend a falsehood. Psychology is a falsehood, just like religion of Christianity. You gotta use science. But anyway, this prophetic pattern is empathic. No. It's from the law of the Jews, chapter 19, verse 19, in which false accusers try to get a person in trouble who's innocent, and they demand from their accusation of a certain punishment to be inflicted upon the innocent person. And so when the false accuser is exposed, they get punished by the same punishment that they would have inflicted upon the victim who was falsely accused. Purim. That's what you're seeing here. Pharaoh is refusing to let the people go, and the Jewish author is specifically calling all of Israel his children. And thus to compare. And so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints refusing to let Mormons go, Trump, next week, boom, destroys everybody in Utah for violating his orders. The ICE director already narked on Cox. And so there's going to be that fight. Cox is not going to win. Trump demands that people obey him. Cox is going to be sacrificed by the church on the altar of Trump. That's why Cox panicked. The church had set Cox up to take the fall for the church. That's why they wanted him to be governor. I warned you, Lyman. You didn't listen. This is why. Nobody listens. Nobody believes. And so, understand that the Jewish authors have to obey Deuteronomy, the law. And that's why the Exodus author is obeying Deuteronomy in multiple ways, not just the man like Moses, telling a story, prophesying of the man like Moses in the same pattern that every other Jewish author does. This is just a different version of it, as we're about to get into at the hour halftime. We probably should stop the video since we're not getting cyber attacked this morning. Just play it safe. And then final note, Pharaoh Russell Marion Nelson marries his second wife on April 6, 2006, 1 year after his wife died. Is that a long enough time to grieve? In Salt Lake City, inverted pentagram temple. Weird. Not really. Lucifer would get married in his temple, obviously. I, too, was married in that temple, room number 13, though. Rather than on May 1st, if it would have been Leanne. And looking back, I sometimes wish it would have been. From the abuse that the first wife did. who did not get married in the Salt Lake Temple with me. That was the second one. She was the one who we had the wedding supper feast at the Lion House, next to the Beehive House, room number 13, in the Temple of the Philistines. And she cut my hair and betrayed me to the Philistines. So, Russell Marion Nelson is calculating. Sort of. I did hear that Gordon B. Hinckley was into astronomy, trying to understand the signs in the heavens, and thus why he rushed to have the conference center built to fulfill Isaiah prophecy, as well as the 2002 Olympics, which had all 5 visible planets in the sky that summer. And so yeah, I'm aware of stuff like that, but again, they don't know, but they know that they need to study to learn to know. And they just don't know how to do the study to learn what is necessary. And so that's the one thing that's astounded me, is that being the guy, there are stuff that I had to learn to be the guy. I just didn't get born and begin to translate Paleo Hebrew and Egyptian. I had to learn line upon line, precept upon precept, just like every other person has to do in life. But there are some things that I cannot force through a self-fulfilling prophecy. They just happened, and it just happened to fulfill prophecy by doing it. And so all of my birth, conception, birth, all through my childhood, before I even knew that I was the guy, by running the test myself to find the guy. And I found him all right. Crap. And so likewise, the same thing is with the prophets and Russell Marion Nelson. They don't know they're fulfilling the prophecies. Like I said, they never expected me. They don't believe it. And then all of a sudden, there I am, and they're panicked, like Holland. Sending the court my latest filing for that Monday, and Holland has an episode that doesn't get reported for 2 weeks later. Dumbass Mormon said, "It sounds like an ad hominem attack." It's carved in stone evidence, you dumbass. You're supposed to recuse yourself. Anyway, and so yes, Russell never named himself. That was his parents. They named him. And so he's not in control of his baby name, meaning being Lucifer. Being the Lucifer of the latter days. He is not in control of that. That just happened. It just happened for him to be appointed before Oaks by Kimball. And then, with the others dying, him being put in pole position when Perry, Packer, and Scott die. See, Nelson was never in control of any of that. He has no clue of what he is to be. But once he got in, yeah, he now knowingly does what he does. He even told us that that's what he's doing. And Mormons don't believe me. So yes, it's prophecy and revelation is just fascinating when you understand it correctly. So let's get into the summary of the Exodus as we'll restart the clock. All right, so Deuteronomy 18 verse 15. This is the Jewish Christ. This is the Jewish law. And listen to the wording in English. Because like I said, we have to do a summary here, so we just got to skim through this as fast as we can. So, the Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee of thy brethren like unto me. Unto him ye shall hearken. This is not Moses who's writing this. The end of Deuteronomy makes that very clear. It is not Moses writing this. This is a Jewish author during the Roman period time of the Qumran community who is writing this. And they are talking about a future Christ, a Jewish Christ, who will be raised up with mortal parents, not supernatural Jesus. Jesus still has not been conceived of yet, for still another over 300 years to come. No Christian interpretation should be used on any of this. None of the scriptures. Christianity did not come into existence until Constantine created it in 325 CE. Christianity did not exist before. Therefore, you cannot use Christian interpretation from the first creed on anything that came before. This is a real simple thing, and yet everybody's making it complicated. All of scholarship on scriptures make this error by believing that the first creed is true. And so they all think that this is literal history. And that causes a lot of problems. So, this is all prophecy and revelation of the Jews. And Joseph Smith makes it very clear he's a Mormon. Section 103 verse 16 for one example. Section 107 verse 91 for a second example. Section 28 verse 2, I think, for a third example. Many examples. Doctrine and Covenants 85 verse 7. The one mighty and strong. Boom, right here. Exact same pattern match. Verse 8 of the prophet who touches the Ark of the Covenant and then dies by the vivid shaft of lightning. Verse 20. Joseph Smith is Jewish. Book of Mormon is Jewish. It is abominable, all wrong and corrupt, verse 19 of the first vision, to turn the Jews Christian. Just like it is for Mormons to turn Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon Christian. Mormons are illiterate, incapable ignorants who can never understand this. Mormons have to be re-educated from their deep doctrinal indoctrination that is corrupting their minds. The false education of this church is turning Mormons into enemies and weapons, haters, abusers, criminals. And Mormons don't see it, just like Christians don't see it. And so every Jewish author is required, because this is the law, to tell their prophecies and revelations of the Christ of the latter days under this pattern. So the Exodus author is no different. And I remembered when I was running this morning and didn't do it. Where is it? I think it's this fall. Yeah. It's not that one. I think it's this one. But I did make a new version of it. Where is that new version? Okay, anyway. So the different Jewish authors of the 5 books of the Torah, called the books of Moses, which are not written by Moses, but nonetheless. They all use the timing for their calendar dating differently. The Genesis author uses month first, then day. Exodus author, day first, then month. Leviticus is month first, Numbers is day first. Deuteronomy is month first. And so the Exodus author is not following the month day pattern, but you can see how they interpret the law and how to follow it. And so Exodus has to follow this same exact pattern, just as Revelation author does, who names himself John, for Revelation chapter 12. That's the same pattern. The 23rd of September 2017 for 1, 2, and 5, Joseph Smith translation moves it to verse 3, is the same pattern as Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1 for verse 5. We can move to verse 3. And 7:14 for 1 and 2. Matthew, likewise, says the same thing, but does it in a different way. He takes out sign from his quoting of Isaiah, doesn't name Isaiah, but names his character Jesus, which is the reverse spelling of Isaiah. And then has him born in the star of Virgo, Spica, the house of bread star, which I did the translation of for you from Egypt, Luxor, Thebes, Waset, is the house of bread. So the temple of the house of bread is the temple dedicated to Amen, the god Amen, Amen El, Emmanuel, the birthplace of Emmanuel of the Egyptians. Thus, why the Jews said that. But that's not my birthplace, because that's not the prophecy. The prophecies using solar eclipses designate not just the days and the hours of when the sign of the prophecies are to be, but they cast a shadow on the earth of where the prophecies are supposed to be. And so all of the Jewish prophecies and revelations need to be seen in that context of that location on earth during that time period for those prophecies. Thus, it's the United States of America. And so the wise men coming to Jesus' parents, mother, and stepdad, say, we have seen, or to Herod first, which, yeah, there's also a king involved in it. But they say we have seen his star in the east. His star is the sun when it's eclipsed. That is the symbolism of him, the sun god at noonday of the Egyptians. And so, this pattern tells you where he is born and when he is born. And it gives you his name too, because the crossroads for the 3 days of darkness of the United States of America, final day of darkness crosses the previous first two to form the first and last letters of the Paleo-Hebrew script alphabet. And so, yes, he is born in America. And so when you get to Ezekiel 17 about the parable of the eagle, they tell you exactly where he would be born in the United States of America and where he would move as a child to Michigan, the Great Lakes, and would go to Southern California to go to the top of the mountains to get the 5 Peaks Award as a kid. Like I said, I ran the test. I went, crap. All right, so let's rush through as quick as we can here. Chapter 1. They begin by leaving off where Genesis ended. Joseph of Egypt is the Jewish man like Moses, Messiah ben David, Emmanuel. But this author is now using him as the forerunner for the coming of the Christ. See, the Genesis author was throwing in a whole bunch of pattern stories and putting them into a narrative form. So Genesis needs to be interpreted differently. But here, they're using Joseph as Messiah ben Joseph, who died by the enemy. They don't say it was by the enemy. They just say that the new Pharaoh doesn't know anything about Joseph. And yeah, Nelson doesn't. He still spreads the lies about Joseph and doesn't have a clue about prophecy and revelation, otherwise he would have known about me and would have known to prepare for me. And they never expected me, nor the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, so they list out the names of the 12 tribes: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, and Joseph. So this is what he's setting up for you. These are the children of the house of Israel. These are not the original guys. Joseph Smith is dead along with the original 12. And so now we have a new president of the church with the children of the Danites who murdered Joseph, betrayed him. Judah, 20 pieces of silver rather than 30. And so the Genesis author is also talking about Joseph Smith Jr. as well as me. Both apply as a dualistic prophecy. I am just like Joseph Smith. I am just like the man like Moses. It's only 6:40. You guys can't be showing up to work this early. It's usually not until 8, if not 9. So it must be a homeless person. Or a neighbor taking their dog for a walk and ran into somebody else's dog. And so, yeah, Mormons have had 200 years to breed and multiply. And so thus, they are becoming a threat to the United States of America. You got to understand that Pharaoh is a theocracy, so it's religious leader and government leader. So you have to learn from the context whether it's Trump or whether it's Nelson in this particular case. And so he's concerned about them and sets up taskmasters. Nixon was the president when I was born, in case you wanted to know, and that has significance because Trump was all about Nixon. And it's sad that Bob Woodward was responsible for taking down Nixon thanks to the Mormon who was Deep Throat. As Bob Woodward has done just bombshell reporting on his interviews with Trump, who leaks like a sieve. And yet, despite Bob Woodward taking down Nixon, thanks to the Mormon, he can't take down Trump with the several books that he's published, quoting Trump directly. Yeah, I sold secret documents to Putin. And he's still president. People do not understand the danger we're in. Everybody's just, oh my hell. And so don't take this literally. Everybody makes this confusion, and thus the Exodus movie, Ten Commandments, and such all claim that it's Ramses II who's the one who is building the Pithom and Ramses treasure cities, and yes, in literal history, but this is a Jewish author during the Roman period time of the Qumran community. He's prophesying and revealing the latter days about me. Do not think that this is literal history, because you're pulling an anachronism of the first creed of Christianity. First creed is all wrong, abominable, and corrupt. Ignore it, remove it from your brain. Look at this as prophecy and revelation only. But understanding the ancient culture would help you greatly. And so the presidents of the United States force Utah to serve them. And so, yeah, you're kind of in bondage to the United States if they don't follow the Constitution to give you rights to life, liberty, and property. Under Trump, yeah, all of those are gone now. Roe v. Wade is overthrown, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom to petition the government for a redress of grievances, get you locked up in the state of Utah with all 15 signing the check to have you exterminated for simply petitioning the government for a redress of grievances. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which name was Shiphrah. And I would, for a full detailed thing, I'd go into the Hebrew and show you that Pharaoh is I would go into detail. We're taking too much time. Hebrew, for example, I would go over Hebrew in both Aramaic and Paleo-Hebrew meanings, because it's slightly different. Because in Aramaic, the R is the suffix determinative, whereas in Paleo-Hebrew, the universal symbol of the sun is the prefix determinative. Nonetheless, moving on. And so Pharaoh, that was part of running the test on the vocabulary for Paleo-Hebrew. to decipher it. That's how I confirmed that it was the universal symbol of the sun. And so, let's see, Pharaoh is concerned about Mormons breeding, wants to cut back on the population. And so this is Herod that does it, this is Trump that did it at the southern border. What makes you think that that Jesus is going to be Mexican? Because they named their children Jesus because they were virgins and were raped to have the baby and were abandoned by their father or husband? Yeah, the women are very religious. That's why they name their child Jesus. It's because he's raped baby Jesus. You didn't know that? And so, yeah, Trump fulfilled this, murdering babies. Nixon, I guess you could say, because he'd send us into Vietnam. But not my dad. He didn't get drafted. And so, this is where everybody thinks they're smart, and they're not. There went a man of the house of Levi. This is part of the Aaronic priesthood. Sons of Levi. Stanford knows about what I'm talking about. Brigham Young has no authority for the Melchizedek priesthood. He amened it. And so, as the church therefore only has Aaronic priesthood abilities through bishops, just like Christianity. The Pope, bishop, presiding bishop. That's it. That's as far as their authority goes. Hilarious that they knew this in advance. Because Samson, he's a Danite. Hilarious. These Jews are awesome. I don't think they tell us who Joseph is, though they give the line for kingship, but he's of Judah for Jesus. But nonetheless, everybody has a different one because the names have meaning and they're trying to present a certain story. So that's why a different descent through different tribes of Israel are made for the different Jesuses in the various stories of the Jews. And so she conceives and bears a son, and this is Osiris with Isis conceiving Horus. But the contest between Horus and his uncle Set is that Set gives birth to him as a branch. Thus he wins the contest, showing that he's a descendant through Set as well. That's where we get to the Pharaoh part. So because of this death threat of children, she has to cast the child into an ark of bulrushes, daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child in, and it went up the Nile River going south, because they're supposedly in Goshen, which was in the Delta, and ends up in Luxor, the birth of Jesus. Nazareth, Bethlehem, same thing. Mitzrayim, Nazareth, same root word, just different prefix and suffix determinatives on both words. And so, yes, there's things that can't happen that are happening here. This is also Genesis chapter 1. the Genesis author is using this to talk about the birth of Moses, the man like Moses. The waters parted and the dry land appeared. Man. And the Egyptians, Heliopolis creation glyph, the Ogdode that I did last week, all play a part in this. That's why it would take hours for just one chapter to go over with you. And so Moses is found by Pharaoh's daughter. If this were literal history, it can't be the daughter. Daughters are not allowed to take care of babies by themselves. It would have to be the queen. And so house rather than bayet for daughter. Bet, not bayet. But what nobody is telling you is that it's not the queen. It is the daughter. The Jewish author knows what he's talking about. Because she's a virgin. A virgin shall conceive and bear a son and name him Emmanuel. There in Luxor. For the god Ammon. Virgo, Bethlehem. That is the documents that Herod's priests research and say he will be born in Bethlehem. Same exact story pattern for the prophecy and revelation of the latter days. That I would be born in the San Francisco Bay. That my home would be in Oakland. That we would move to the Great Lakes of Michigan. That we would move to Southern California, where I would hike to the top of the mountains as a child, and other prophecies about my whole life. That's why I went, oh crap, running the test. Oh crap. My dad fed me the stroganoff that burned my tongue as the hot burning coal rolled out, and I picked it up and blistered. Book of Jasher, story about Moses as a child. He goes to sit on Pharaoh's lap, pulls the crown off his head and puts it on him. Pharaoh instantly orders his death. And the priest says, he's just a child. Let's run a test. We'll put a nice shiny jewel and then a hot burning coal. If he chooses the jewel, we'll murder him. If he takes the hot burning coal, he's just a child, let him go. He chooses the hot burning coal and burns his tongue as the Jew is trying to explain why Moses had the stutter, the speech impediment that is said here for Exodus. And so yeah, camp out with my dad as a child. Dear God. So yes, everything, guys. I ran the tests because that's what you're supposed to do. I have to fulfill every single prophecy on the revelations that they're supposed to happen. And the Jews know this. Even the Jewish authors tell us this, like Matthew, for example. Thus was fulfilled of the words of the prophet, saying, blah, blah, blah. All of it has to be fulfilled. Not a single one can be missed. That's why the Jews don't accept Jesus as the Christ. He failed. He didn't fulfill the prophecies. And Christians don't understand this, as they give him another chance, and he still hasn't shown. Okay? And so, yeah, don't take it literally. My mom is my mom. They were married in the Los Angeles temple in the summer of '69, and there I was conceived, and then we went up to Berkeley, where I would be born. All of it fulfilled, as on the 7th of March, the solar eclipse on the east coast of the United States heralded my birth. 10 days later, as Joseph Fielding Smith Jr., also a descendant of Hiram Smith, is the false Christ to take over the church. Thus, the curse of Joseph Smith, I put the little asterisk in red by his name for that reason. Okay, and so drawing him out of the water, this isn't King Sargon. The Syrians weren't first. They stole it from the Egyptians. The Jewish author is getting this from the Egyptians. This is not King Sargon the First, who stole it to claim authority over Assyria at the time. And so, yes, this is the Ark on the Nile River, Luxor being the place of Ammon, the birth of Ammon, and so on. Okay? He grew up among the world. He didn't grow up in Goshen. Notice this? He's in Pharaoh's court. But because he's not the literal son, but an adopted son, literal history tells us that Moses would have been sent to be educated in the northern crown kingdom of Heliopolis, the Sun City. So thus, I too have to be educated in the North Crown schools. Norco, Southern California. BYU, Idaho. Not BYU. Canada, even. University of Lethbridge. University of Utah, rather than BYU. All north of the main school for the church. And then Southern California just happened to be Norco. Just happened. I didn't force it. I didn't name the school. They did. For I don't know how many decades earlier. Again, there are things that I cannot control the prophecies of. They just happened. I ran the tests and went, oh crap. And so, yeah. So the prophets find out about me and want me murdered. Pharaoh wants him murdered. That is Monson. Pharaoh falsely accuses me, orders my death. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. Okay? And so Pharaoh, by giving a false accusation, issuing the punishment for the false accusation, died in the same manner. The curse of Joseph Smith. Monson is dead. You're next, Nelson. You too ordered my death. And so now they're talking about the priest of Midian with 7 daughters. And this is the second wife of Moses. He has an Egyptian, and he has, what's her name? Zipporah. These are the 2 failed marriages. Samson had 2 failed marriages. Jacob, 2 failed marriages. Same pattern, 2 failed marriages. I didn't want to have them fail. They just did in accordance with prophecy. So I'm supposed to get a 3rd, but all women have run away and hid. They don't want to watch my channel. Crap. Okay? And so it's weird because the first wife only bore me children, not the second wife. But the second wife here is the one who bears him children. Samson, there's no indication that he had children through either of them. So understand. And then Rachel and Leah, yeah, 12 tribes and a daughter. Okay, now it came to pass in the course of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. Okay. So Monson's dead, now Nelson, and he increases the bondage on Mormons. They call it hinge pointing. Alright, so here we have Moses, who starts his ministry on the 23rd of September 2017 at the top of the mountain to go into Egypt, to Luxor, the house of bread, start of the ministry, Bethlehem. Prophecy, sign in the heavens and likeness of things on the earth. Alright, and so Ruel is also Jethro. It's a weird thing, but you got to know Paleo-Hebrew to understand it. And it's Horeb rather than Sinai. So they got to know the Paleo-Hebrew to understand that. And so he has his first vision, the burning bush, rather than the burning rock of Lehi, rather than the actual father and son Ammon to Joseph Smith. All the same pattern. And so he gets a revelation. He's the guy. So yeah, I had my vision, or my dream too, of that. That was in the Holy of Holies of the Salt Lake Temple, in which the full glory of Jesus appeared to me in the Holy of Holies, telling me all about the latter days. I had never seen inside the Holy of Holies before. I just knew that one room in between the 2 other ceiling rooms was called the Holy of Holies, and that's why they had a planter in place of the door, so that no wandering eyes would go in. And so in my dream, I am seeing what's inside of that room. I have never seen inside that room. I have no idea what's going on in there. Don't know what it looks like. And so after that dream, some couple years later, I'm reminded of that dream, and I decide to check the internet for pictures of the Holy of Holies to see if I can find what it actually looks like. And it's incredibly difficult to find. Most of them are black and white. I did find a colorized version. It's lost somewhere in my files. I can't find it. I didn't label it correctly and didn't file it correctly. If I would have known now if I'd known then what I know now, I would have organized things completely differently and done it properly. So, God. Anyway, I found it. And I went, oh crap, that's just like in my dream. The first vision. I didn't know that. And there it was. And then the table even. There was no altar in my dream. And so yeah, exactly. And so that was my first vision. Okay? And then I had the mission vision in February of 2017, right before the Elko, Nevada fulfillment of Revelation 12 with the flood. Lunar eclipse involved in that also. Partial lunar eclipse. And so, yeah, that's the start of my ministry. 23rd September 2017, which I had already previously found the date. I didn't realize verse 5 was part of that at that time yet. That was after Monson's death that I was going, okay, wait a minute, this is next. God sitting on his throne. Well, that's Saturn in Ophiuchus, and then I checked back on the first sign in the heavens on the 23rd of September, and that's when I found it. And then saw in the footnotes below, see the change sequence of events in the Joseph Smith translation. I went, oh crap. It's all there before. Okay, and so then he's making excuses not to be the guy. Mormons aren't going to listen to me, I quit. Holland, you dumbass. And so here's the I am that everybody gets wrong. I've done that video at least 2 times, explaining that for you, giving you the Paleo-Hebrew translation. It's just a variation of Yahweh. And that thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, I am the God of Joseph Smith, the Hebrew God, the man like Moses. Moses don't believe. And they don't. Prophecy fulfilled. Amazing. And so then he's told to send a letter to the elders 70 presidency and say unto them, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of Joseph Smith Jr. appeared unto me, saying, I have surely visited you and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. Signs in the heavens are coming, the latter days are here. And they changed the Wikipedia page. See, that sort of was me knowing of this and doing it. Suing the church, I didn't want to because I know I'd have to do it pro se. But I knew it had to be done because they were trying to murder me again. And so, yeah, I did it. and it happened to be the year of the Exodus, which I did not plan. Oaks planned it, not me. I just knew I had to do it, and knew that I had to sue Pharaoh in Pharaoh's court, but I didn't realize that was the Exodus year. Oaks planned that, not me. And so land flowing with milk and honey. It's talking about Zion, needing to go back to Zion. That's what all this is about. And so 3 days journey in the wilderness, which it's 2 technically, but it's long days. And so if you were just to stick to a regular day's journey, it would be 3 to get to Zion from Utah. 3 days journey if you're on the California coast, all the way up to Washington, all the way down to the Mexican border. But 3 days also is symbolic of the 3 days of darkness, thus 3 days journey for the latter days. 21st of September, 2024, 8 April. Or 21st of August, 2017, the solar eclipses. And so it's not 3 days, it's the 7 years of the latter days, which you have to include the conception time back in 2016, and you have to go into overtime for 2025. Okay. Will not let you go. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders. This is the show of who has authority and who doesn't. Notice Pharaoh has to have his priests do it for him. Pharaoh can't do it himself. Moses does it himself. Yeah. Take that, Nelson. And his priests can't even really do it, because mine are better. Oh wow, he sums it all up in this chapter 3. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor and of the sojourning in her house jewels and silver, jewels of gold and raiment, and you shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and you shall spoil the Egyptians. So yeah, everything is being told to them of what will happen at the end. And so then he goes and tells the story of how it got to that point in the end. And that's what the church has to fall and transfer it to me. We just read that. It has to happen. But the church won't give it up. And so I don't know how it's going to happen. I'm deeply concerned that Trump is going to take over and cause the destruction. And the church still, if they get destroyed by Trump, will not concede and hand it to me. They will let the money just get stuck in the offshore bank accounts and the LLC corporations that the stock market will tank rather than give it to me. They are that stubborn. They are so pissed that I am the fulfillment that they will go to their dying grave rather than admit that they were evil and wrong, and will let Mormons burn rather than give it over to me. That's how stubborn they are. That's how evil they are. Mormons don't understand this. It is not their church. They are not even a church. They are a fraud, a criminal corporate fraud. Okay, and so sign is given here. I would check to see the spelling, if it's the first and last letter of the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet. Thus, being in the context of the latter days, And there's signs in the plural for the two X's over the United States of America. Those are the revelation dates for when this Exodus is to occur, if that would be the case. Probably should check. Okay, fine. It's 8 and 9. Go to Blue Letter Bible and check. What if it's not? Oh no. Exodus 4, right? Yeah, 4, 8, and 9. Even Google mocks me. I told them my system cannot upgrade. It can't do Windows 11. And so they mock me by saying that I need to finish the upgrade. Update your system to allow our AI, and I can't. The system is obsolete. And so instead of leaving it alone, they've decided to mock me and say, buy a new system, you dumbass. Pay us more money. Even though it would be an HP or some other company, but I don't know, maybe Google does computer stuff, but would require their service. AI is a fraud, but nonetheless. Off topic. Exodus 4. And Westminster Leningrad Codex. And 8. Yep. First one, yep. 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 It is the day and the hours and the years for the latter days given here in Exodus. Breaking news! Okay? It's the exact same pattern all Jews use. Same latter days, same time period, same characters prophesied, just different names, different locations, different settings, different story variations, but the same patterns throughout all of them. Real simple thing, and everybody misses it because of the first creed of Christianity. And so, I see blind is thrown in here. The first day of darkness, solar eclipse to start it off. Set blinds Horus his right eye for the sun. And then would go on to blind the left eye for the lunar eclipses. Then his sight would be restored as he would win and take back the kingdom, go to Zion and life evermore. And so the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. Is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? Can't he speak for you? And Moses does all the speaking. Did you notice that? Hilarious. Okay, so then he goes to Egypt. And then here's the circumcision thing, which, yes, it also has to do with the authority of kingship. And it's Zipporah, his second failed marriage, was involved with that. Although it's the first wife who called me the bloody husband, wrote about it in a book. Bleep, bleep, bleep. But yeah, the men's penis is similar to the waters parted, dry land appears, the son is born. And thus, the circumcising is the crown rising up from the foreskin in that symbolism. And so, yeah, they found the Egyptians doing that as well. And so it's difficult for people to do videos on YouTube because YouTube thinks it's porn. God. So understand that that's what circumcision is all about. The same exact pattern as the waters parting, dry land appears, the seed passing through on dry ground to the promised land, house of Israel, the birth of the Christ, the man like Moses, inundation of the Nile, creation of heaven and earth. They're all the same thing, just different ways of explaining it. That's why it's multiple translations for visible languages, not one word per translation of a hieroglyph. Alright, and there's signs again. And there's the elders of Israel, presidency of the 70, getting a letter from Moses, talking about the signs. I did not know that part. I just found out right now. You saw me. I had to check to make sure it was the right word from Hebrew. Okay, and then Moses and Aaron sues Pharaoh and Pharaoh's court during the Exodus year, which was a test run. Let him go. And Nelson increased the burdens on Mormons. So yeah, Nelson is going to murder Mormons. You're too populous. You can't be controlled. You're wicked and disobedient to him. So he's thinking of using Trump to murder you, or justify using Cox to murder you, but select people. But Trump wants all. Trump angry with Nelson. And so taskmasters, idol, and so evil, which in Hebrew, evil is different than raw. But the Jews, not wanting to put raw, would replace it with evil. And so the translation is needing to be corrected. I'd have to check to make sure it's evil and not raw. The 19th dynasty replacement of Ammon, which they then syncretized. I can't pronounce that without seeing it in front of me. Merging of Ra and Ammon together to be Ammon-Ra during the 19th dynasty of the Ra Moseses, rather than the David Moseses of the 18th dynasty. And yeah, the Ra Moseses of the 19th dynasty worship Set, rather than the Horus names given to the David Moseses of the 18th dynasty. Some extra information for you as I'm going by. And then he says Jehovah rather than I am. Here I am, Jehovah. We don't know that. We know I am. Oh, right, that was that's the name, you're right. No, you said Jehovah. Too late. Give the land of Canaan, Joseph Smith is brilliant in Abraham chapter 1 on Abraham and explaining the drunken Noah and cursing Canaan. Children of Israel and Lord, I'm here to free you. Burn the witch! And so, yeah, they blame Moses for having Nelson make things tougher on them. And uncircumcised lips. See what he did there? Brilliant Jewish author. Here in chapter 6 now, Moses spake before the Lord, saying, Behold, the children of Israel have not hearkened unto me. How then shall Pharaoh hear me, who am of uncircumcised lips? The hot burning coal, which is also in Isaiah as a prophecy, by the way. That's why the Jewish author of the book of Jasher in the Middle Ages wrote about that extra story to put in the book of Jasher, which is a legitimate story. It's a prophecy. It happened. I am the one who is, and therefore it happened, and so the book of Jasher needs to be included in our scriptures. It is a legitimate Jewish document of prophecy and revelation, similar to the Jewish Kabbalah story of Adam and Eve, with Lilith being the first wife. See the two failed wives? And Lilith wanting to have sex on top. That's the Heliopolis creation story, Cliff, which already needs to be put in our scriptures, as that's Genesis chapter 1. And so thus that story also of Adam and Eve needs to be put in there. And yes, literal prophecy fulfilled too. We'll not go into detail on that. Women aren't watching anyway, so that I don't mind anymore, but I'm all alone. We'll end on that. Lord spake unto Moses, first king of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. It is the 18th dynasty that changed king to Pharaoh. Just so that you know, David Moses's. So the genealogy is listed here of the Mormons. This is the book of the law necessary to go to Zion. You have to be on the book of the law to go to Zion. We have to have the fall of the church. They have to transfer the authority to me so that I can put out the section 133 call to have you come to Zion and life evermore. Oh Babylon, we bid thee farewell. We're going to Zion. Bleep you and all. Alright, and so then more signs. This is where the rod becomes a serpent. Use that as props so that you would see, oh, he's claiming to be the man like Moses. I better run the test. They don't. Older women see the snake and go, that's a serpent! Oh my God, it's evil! Get the hell away from my channel. The river is turned to blood. This is the inundation of the Nile, the waters parting, the dry land appears, all of that. The soil of the mountains of Egypt, down in the south, are red, and so when the snow melts, it takes the soil, red soil, with it into the Nile River, into the delta, to the Mediterranean. And so the river turns blood red because of that. The Nile shores are black soil, thus why it's called Egypt. Kemet, the black land. Chem is Ham in Paleo-Hebrew. Chem. It's not an H. It's a CH for Bach. And so thus why it's interesting that the Jewish author of Genesis added Mitzrayim to one of his children to be Egypt, which is actually Luxor. Nazareth, Bethlehem. Fascinating. But nonetheless, because Ham, he's Egypt. The Genesis author is saying that all the land of Egypt has different territories, but it's all under Ham, Egypt. And yet he still threw in Mitzrayim. Weird. But that's where the capital was. Nazareth, Mitzrayim. Same root word, 2 letters, not 3. That's Semitic. Paleo-Hebrew uses prefix and suffix determinatives. Okay, anyway. And so that's what's going on here. It's authority. Moses is saying, I'm the one prophesied. The child to be born. And the branch turning into a serpent, thus Set, who battles the serpent in the underworld, which I did that video yesterday or 2 days ago. I made a photocopy of it because I put it in another video for you the other day too, showing you all the different translations that I've done videos on. And so that's merely what it's going over here with the serpent rod, is that the Egyptian story of the winning of the battle is by Set producing the branch. Ta-da! So 2 Nephi chapter 3 verse 5, a branch from Joseph Smith Sr. One branch is Junior, the other branch is Hiram, which would come me. And so the rod, the iron rod, and yeah, you probably heard about Oliver Cowdery, who talked about having the rod of Aaron. Yeah, his dad was also a part of the New Israelites with Senior, which is a fascinating story that I've been telling you about on several occasions. Alright, so that's just the authority thing coming from the Egyptians, prophecy, revelation. And so then you have the frogs, lice, flies. That's what happens. The red soil water murders all the fish. And thus you have the flies and the lice. And the lice, that's why the Egyptians were bald and would put wigs on or the crowns to cover up their baldness because of the lice. That's why the Brits in government wore the wigs, is because of lice. So they'd shave their heads and would put on the wigs and have the powder stuff. Likewise in America, that was sort of done, I guess, wasn't it? Until we gave that up. I don't know when. I'm not going to look it up. And so, yeah, death results in the flies, and the flies result in the increase in frogs. Interesting, John the Revelator has the false prophet and Trump, Nelson and Trump, being described as frogs. And so, help. Nobody thinks to connect Revelation with this frog thing here. Has to do with the same thing. They don't have authority. I do. And so, chapter 9, Lord destroys the cattle of the Egyptians, but not of the Israelites, and boils and blains, sends hail and fire. That's the stars falling from heaven. And Sodom and Gomorrah. The destruction. So yeah, there's talk about murdering cows because of the methane emissions. But yeah, the food supply had problems with the sicknesses that went through. Mad cow disease. And let him go, will not let you go. And then the Mormon crickets. And 3 days of darkness. 3 solar eclipses over the United States of America, 2017 to 2024. And Ballard was one over Utah. Hilarious. And then they put in Karen as part of their agreement with Saudi Arabia, who's funding ICE terrorism. Mormons fund terrorism with prostitution money given to the church. Dear God. And so this one, chapter 10, yeah, is the locust in 3 days of darkness. And the church has ranches and elk and stuff like that for their food. So all of that would need to come with us too. In the Exodus. So departing Israel authorized to ask for jewels and gold of their neighbors so that we can build Zion with it. And then the slaying of the firstborn promised. And so notice how previously it was just Pharaoh who has to die because he falsely accused Moses and sentenced him to death. And so Pharaoh then has to die in that manner for his false accusation. And then Stanford brought out my son and the children of Israel. And so asking those questions that he did that I already dealt with. Okay? And so, yeah, I don't see any other way. I don't see Trump giving us money to go build Zion without bribing him. I don't see his FBI doing anything against the church, as Merrick Garland didn't either, nor did Christopher Wray. So I have no clue how it's going to happen, but it has to happen so that Mormons know I'm the guy. Otherwise, all is lost. And so Passover, which now I understand is for this year, even though the test run was in 2020, creeping death, but the Talmud goes into beyond the mark stuff on obeying Passover and Sukkot and the Purim holidays. I got those documents over the weekend in English. I'm hoping it's a Jewish understanding and not a Christianized, because they use the Septuagint for their scriptures rather than the biblical Hebrew. I don't know why nobody does the translation from biblical Hebrew. They know that's the more authoritative one than the Septuagint. Only Christians use the Septuagint rather than the biblical Hebrew, because the Christians made it and claimed that it was Jews who made it. In the BCs, no. And so, yeah, creeping death. Dear God. Oakes confessing that he was responsible for it. and Nelson calling China for that business transaction for which they got $6 billion through just Ensign Peak Advisors alone. Just abominable. And yet, despite Fox News covering it, Mormons still thank thee, O God, for a false prophet who steals from them and pays the terrorists money to destroy them, for which Purim is necessary to take down the church. Why aren't Mormons rising up in rebellion? I don't understand. And so I did the video a couple of weeks ago going over how Passion Week of Jesus is Passover for the Egyptians. And notice that it's 2017 to 2024, 7 years rather than 7 days. And so by turning it all literal history, Christians are able to separate Jesus's Passion Week from the actual Passover that is supposed to be the prophecy understanding. And so it's not 7 days, it's 7 years. But it has to be 3 years. When Jesus was 30 to 33. No. Dumbasses. The 3 years, or the 3 days of darkness from 2017 to 2024. 7 years. Okay, so that's pretty much it. The lamb being used here is the lamb in Revelation 19. Verses 11 and 17 for the 8 April 2024 solar eclipse, the final one of the final year. And so this is 2024 for when Jupiter, from Revelation 12, the Christ, sign in the heavens representative, is in Aries, the Ram-Lamb constellation. And this is where Joseph Smith Sr. is brilliant, using Abraham sacrificing Isaac to give us the date of 8 April 4 CE to then show that the Exodus year was 2020, that Oak said was just a test run. But then also understanding that the last year of the latter days would be 2024, knowing that it would be a test run in 2020. Brilliant man. And Mormons don't believe. It's happened, and Mormons still refuse to accept the Book of Mormon as true. Still under condemnation for not believing the Book of Mormon. And so the cloud of darkness with the camps and the pillar of fire thing, that's the two staffs that the military used going out into battle to signal the different things for that. Won't get into that. And so and then I parted the waters in 2020. I did my thing. I didn't expect it. I just was inspired to say, hey guys, if something happens this year, because it was a test run after all, I would find out last year. Let's plan on meeting at the Green River turnoff at the 70 and the 2 branches that tie into it. And so the one guy that's been with me since 2015 has been contacting me about earthquakes that have been going on around that location. There's an issue that goes on there because of a certain geographical situation And so, yeah, very interesting. But nonetheless. And so, then sometime later that year, Fox 13 News Utah comes out and says the Green River has dried up. And not a single Mormon believed. The biggest event of the Ten Commandments movie, and Mormons had it happen, and they don't believe it. They don't believe it. All that work for nothing. So yeah, the Greeks have their little stone tablet that shows chariots getting swallowed up in the sea, and they all assume that that's the flood, the literal history. And you got people thinking they're being scholarly. Oh, well, there was a volcano eruption that caused a tsunami that would have taken the waters away, and then would have come back and prophecy and revelation, guys. It happened. Don't look beyond the mark. Don't assume that the first creed of Christianity is true. It's not. It's all wrong, abominable, and corrupt. Okay? So that's it. The next story then begins with top of the mountains again. Aaron is the false prophet Nelson, who has a golden calf from the wealth of Mormons, from prostitution money, which is portrayed as orgy sex in the story. Same stuff. Just a different story repeating the pattern. Okay, there you go. 2.5 hours. Great. So we'll have to cut back on pictures in the beginning.